Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on?
What is going on? Each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up, and our general impressions. I'm realizing that I'm doing the intro here, and this is the first show we're doing after my recent work trip, where I ended up plugging my podcast to a number of my work colleagues. So if you are joining me for the very first time and you work with me, thank you, welcome. Yeah, we talk about things on Disney Plus. And today we're going to be talking all about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Obviously, the last few weeks we've been doing Star Wars Vision stuff. And then in the next month, we'll be doing our run of Indiana Jones films, with those all coming. So this seemed like a perfect, all right, we got a week to squeeze in the latest Marvel thing that came to Disney Plus. So before we hop into that, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. You may have heard that Disney Plus is purging a whole bunch of shows. And I went through kind of the list and was like, oh, some of these are shows that we have Disney Plus episodes on. So apologies if you ever try and go back and listen to episode 24 on Artemis Fowl, although that's actually just saving you a whole bunch. That's actually probably one of the best things they're culling from the Disney Plus, because that was a very, very bad movie. But we also did episode 41 on Encore, episode 60 on Diary of a Future President, episode 66 on Mighty Ducks Game Changers, and episode 89 on Turner and Hooch. All of those shows, as well as many others, including The World According to Jeff Goldblum and the Pentatonics Christmas Special, which I've shouted out on episodes definitely in the past. All of those are getting the axe from the Disney Plus platform, so you will not have a easy, immediate way to view those in the basically as of, I believe, today, the day you're listening to this. I believe May 26th is when all of those are set to be removed from the service. So bummer to all the people that worked on all those projects. Hopefully they find a second life and Disney just licenses them out to Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, that is the hope.
And it's just a case of them doing it so they can cut the value of those assets from their own bottom line and try and actually make some money off of them. But yeah, I'll have to try and remember to go through and put updates on all of those episodes to be sorry, as of May 26th, this was removed from Disney Plus. So, yeah, anybody that tries to go back and binge all of our episodes, you might run into some issues along the way there. But today is going to be all about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I imagine will not be going away from Disney Plus anytime soon. If you want more thoughts on this, you can also go catch me and Cameron from our Spoilercast about a couple months back, I guess, probably now. That was That Nerdy Site Show, episode 161. That was our Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania Spoilercast. So yeah, why do we pick it? Because it is the MCU newness, as we often do when these things come out. Obviously, in a month and a half or 2 months, we'll have a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 making its way to Disney Plus, so I'm sure we'll do that at that time. Our history lesson here. This was originally released February 17th, 2023. Other releases of the time, we had M3gan, or Megan. It had come out January 6th. We had the aptly named Plane. It came out January 13th with Gerard Butler. We had Magic Mike's Last Dance, February 10th. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania being really probably the first major heavy hitter of this year. I think it was also the first movie to dethrone Avatar: The Way of Water. I think that was,
I believe so, yes.
Probably leading the box office for most of January. We had Cocaine Bear, February 24th, Creed 3, March 3rd, Scream 6, March 10th, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, March 17th. The film has a runtime of 2 hours and 4 minutes. though sometimes it feels way longer than that, especially on this rewatch. In the MCU timeline of things, we had Thor: Love and Thunder, July 8th of 2022, followed by Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, November 11th of last year. Quantumania here was the first Marvel film of 2023. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 just hit a few weeks back, May 5th. The Marvels, which was originally slated for a summer release, got pushed to November 10th. So it'll be coming out later this year. And the first film of 2024 in the MCU block will be Captain America: New World Order, as Sam Wilson takes over the mantle in film form. Our cast and crew, our roll call here, we have the director, Peyton Reed, who previously had directed stuff like Bring It On. It was his first big breakout directing role. He also directed The Breakup and Yes Man before taking over directing duties on Ant-Man from Edgar Wright. And he is one of the few people in the MCU who directed all 3 movies of his respective trilogy, having done Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now this. He also has directed a couple episodes of The Mandalorian. The writer here was Jeff Loveness. Mainly, his biggest thing probably to date was a number of episodes and probably a couple of years on Jimmy Kimmel Live as a writer for there. Mm-hmm. But he also wrote and contributed to a couple Emmy Awards and I think an Oscars as well as a writer for there. And he's also written a handful of episodes of Rick and Morty, which obviously I think is probably the biggest influence on this film.
Yeah.
Our cast of characters here, we have, of course, Paul Rudd, who's been Scott Lang and Ant-Man since 2015. One of his earliest big breakout roles was in Clueless, of course. He was also in the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo plus Juliet, where he played the role of Paris. He's in Wet Hot American Summer, Anchorman, and a bajillion other things as the timeless Paul Rudd. We have Evangeline Lilly returning as Hope Van Dyne and the Wasp, which she has been playing since 2015. She's, of course, best known from her role as Kate on the series Lost. She also did Real Steel and the Hobbit films. Michael Douglas has been playing Hank Pym since 2015. He's also a stalwart of the 80s with films like Fatal Attraction and Wall Street. He was in Basic Instinct and Behind the Candelabra, where he also referred to someone named Scott a lot. We have Michelle Pfeiffer, who's been Janet Van Dyne since 2018 in Ant-Man and the Wasp. She got her big break in kind of the 1-2 punch of Grease 2 and Scarface. Of course, was also Catwoman in Batman Returns. She's in A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I shout out because she played Titania in that, and I did that show in high school. She's also in Hairspray, and one of my favorite movies of all time, Stardust.
Oh, she's so, Stardust is so great, but also massive shout out to Hairspray, musical that doesn't get enough love.
Indeed. I could do without the John Travolta-ness of the film version, but everybody else in it really fun.
Oh, I love John Travolta.
I'm not a fan of John Travolta. Is what I've realized in
over the years. You're just like, wow, I just really don't like John Travolta.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You don't like me, Trev.
Jonathan Majors has been playing Kang or variants of Kang since Loki in 2021. He's previously in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, Lovecraft Country, Da 5 Bloods, and shortly after this, obviously, he was also in Creed 3. Who knows what his future actually entails, given his legal troubles and representational troubles in the weeks following the release of this film. Catherine Newton took over the role as Cassie Lang, having been in films like Lady Bird, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, and the series Big Little Lies. And Corey Stoll here, having returning as Darren Cross, but now in MODOK form. But he was previously Darren Cross in the 2015 Ant-Man. He's also been in films like Midnight in Paris. He was on the short-lived Law & Order LA series. He was in House of Cards, probably the first thing I remember seeing him in that first season. He was in Billions, and he was in the West Side Story remake as Lieutenant Schrank from a couple years ago, last year maybe, whenever that one came out. Time's a blur in the pandemic era. Obviously, we also have a couple cameos like Bill Murray popping up in here, and then kind of the Quantum Realm folks like Katie M. O'Brien, who also recognized in her work on The Mandalorian recently. William Jackson Harper from The Good Place. David Desmalchin plays Veb in this, since the crew of Luis and the other ex-cons make no appearance whatsoever in this. But yeah, he was Veb, the red ooze guy who's very excited for holes. So that was kind of where he popped up. And because I remember, like, when we left the movie, I had seen his name in the credits. I was like, did they get credited for like a deleted scene or something? And realized, nope, he was just the voice of that guy. Randall Park also makes a very brief cameo as Jimmy Woo, which he's been playing since Ant-Man and the Wasp. Some trivia for you. Emma Furman played the now teenage Cassie Lang in Avengers Endgame, but the role was recast with Katherine Newton, obviously. Furman claimed on Twitter that she learned about being replaced when Disney released details of the film at their Investor Day in December 2020, and that while she was saddened, she was still grateful to have been a part of the MCU. So shout out to her agent for training her on how to appropriately handle that news in a public light.
Yep.
This is Bill Murray's first appearance, or first film in the Marvel Studios. He was interested in joining Marvel for a while, and even phoned Katherine Newton to ask if she was okay with him joining the cast on this film. I saw from a, like, I want to say Jimmy Fallon interview. She basically had done celebrity golf tournament stuff with him. She's a big golfer. Obviously, Bill Murray is as well. So they had met through that, and he reached out and contacted her about joining the film after she'd been cast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like he had to like clear the air with her because he did something like to piss her off or something.
Nope.
Which he's known to do.
Yep. They bonded over their mutual love of celebrity golf events.
I have catered celebrity golf events before. They're pretty awesome.
Nice. At the beginning of his career, director Peyton Reed directed behind-the-scenes material for the Back to the Future franchise. Of those efforts included, obviously, Back to the Future Part 2. Early on in Quantumania, there is a moment involving a pizza where Hank, like, enlarges the pizza, and that is, and Peyton Reed has highlighted that is deliberately a reference and a tip of the hat to that scene from Back to the Future, where the pizza gets hydrated as a nod to his origins in the industry.
Okay.
This is, as I alluded to earlier, only the second trilogy in the MCU to have the same director for all three films, following the Spider-Man films that were directed by John Watts. And I saw this called out in the Honest trailer for this as well, so I appreciated that it was here in IMDb. Mark Oliver Everett, who is the frontman of the rock band Eels, cameos as a man asking Scott for a picture in the opening montage. Everett's father, Hugh Everett III, was the first to propose the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. So that's why he is included as a weird little cameo in this
What?
film. Yep. There's a weird little cameo over, quantum mechanics, Quantumania, all that stuff.
Oh, also tie into the Back to the Future stuff, all that thing about how Back to the Future lied about time travel in Avengers Endgame.
Oh, yeah, there's that as well. This is the 31st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then the mid and post-credit scenes feature the following variants of Kang. Rama-Tut, which was Kang's original alias when he traveled back in time and conquered ancient Egypt, introduced in the Fantastic Four. I don't need to run through all that stuff. We have Mortis, the future version of Kang and ruler of Limbo. We have Scarlet Centurion, the alias assumed by Kang after his defeat by the Fantastic Four in ancient Egypt and his encounter with Doctor Doom in the 20th century. Victor Timely, version of Kang who established the town of Timely, Wisconsin in 1901 to serve as his 20th century base of operations. Obviously, we see him in the post-credits little Loki tease.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chrono Monitor 616, a version of Kang that works for the Time Variance Authority. Presumably, maybe that was, I guess, I don't know where we see him. Maybe he's just in the background, but he was definitely shouted out here. Additionally, Immortus was the inspiration for He Who Remains in the Loki season 1 finale. And obviously we got the tease that Victor Timely will appear in the second season. So Cam, you and I both rewatched this recently. Yes. Obviously, we talked at length about it shortly after seeing it when we originally saw it in theaters. We both rewatched it. And how does this hold up here only a few months on?
Yeah.
And on a second rewatch?
I'll be honest, it's less than I enjoyed it far less than I did the last time we watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It not to a point where it's like it's bad. I still don't think it's a bad movie. But it is. There are parts of this movie that I realized at the time where I was like, oh, well, that's fun or that's interesting. But looking back on it, especially in comparison to the other two Ant-Man films, it's missing. It feels like they thought, okay, we have a formula, and they took out pieces of that, thinking, well, we'll just put it with some other things that are similar to it, and it'll work out great. An example of that would be the kind of Quantumania citizens or denizens that are like the rebels. Being a stand-in for the crew, the heist crew. And it just doesn't work as well. I think that they're okay.
Yeah.
But I think that it's
fulfilling completely different roles.
Yeah, they're completely different kinds of characters as well. Like, I'm not trying to say they're the same kind of thing, but it feels like they are an odd fit in to put into this. I mean, I appreciate that they want to kind of give us a idea of what it's like living in Kang's dominant society versus outside of it, with the parallel between like Bill Murray's character and kind of like that environment versus the others that are living outside of that society. I get like why they did a lot of the things they did. And I think that a lot of them work, and I think some of them just don't. But probably the biggest thing that I took away from this movie overall is that it's really weird that the Ant-Man films feel like a Ant-Man side story to the Ant-Man that we see in the Avengers type films. Or like, it feels weird. How do I put this in the right way? We have Ant-Man 1, which sets up Ant-Man as a character and sets up, and I think it's still like one of the best, I think it's still one of the best Marvel films. It just has a heart and humor that very, like, just isn't really reached by other ones because its cast is just phenomenal. The follow-up to that, Ant-Man and the Wasp, is an afterlog of the events that took place in Captain America: Civil War.
Mm-hmm. It's also timing wise is like it came out after Infinity War, so we flash back to before Infinity War.
Yeah.
In the chronology of things, only ending at Infinity War in the post-credit scene.
Which I will say, the post-credits, like, that shouldn't have been a post-credit scene. That should have just been an ending. I digress. That's a beef I have with that film.
I mean, one of the big things I'll just touch on now, talking about it, is this movie tries to completely wipe away that post-credit scene happens. Yes. In particular, obviously, all of Janet's like frustrations and like. I don't talk about the quantum realm.
That's like, not accurate at all. You literally
it's like, no, you were actively helping investigate the quantum realm last time we saw you.
Yeah.
Like that complete change of motivation is not even in concert with what like the very last thing we saw you doing, really.
Yeah. And it's weird that the kind of like follow through, like director's the same through all three films even.
Yeah.
Because you think that would have been something that they would have picked up on. Like, even a line where they said, what do you mean you're against us looking into the quantum realm? Like, you've been guiding us. And then her saying, like...
It's just a major continuity.
Yeah, it's a continuity issue, but they could have resolved that by her basically, like, a reveal that she sabotaged their efforts to keep them from going that, like... As, like, we were on more surface level than we, like... I lied about the readings. We were never that deep, or something like that. Like we never got that close to the quantum realm. Like I prevented us from getting to that.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines, I think, could have helped fix that. But still, it is a massive continuity error.
Yeah.
But I think that also comes in part because we are literally how many years since Ant-Man and the Wasp? 2018 to 2023, so 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another Marvel character that has. I mean, Thor maybe is the only one I can think of that has like these massive gaps between their solo movies.
I mean, Doctor Strange was a.
Oh, you're right. Nope, Doctor Strange takes
gap.
the cake.
Yeah.
Literally takes the cake on that one. Doctor Strange 1, Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
That span of time. I think that this is part of the problem with having such such a wide, vast universe that they're exploring. And the idea that some people have that we can't. How do I put this? There are some people who get real snobby about, oh, it's on Disney Plus and not a theatrical release. And so they snub their noses down at some stories. And I don't know if this would have worked as a Disney Plus show. Getting more of an effort put into it to experience the quantum realm as a fully fleshed out place, I think could have helped this out. Watching this on Disney Plus, it's like we bum rush through. Like for a film that has like weird long points where it feels like nothing's happening, it also bum rushes its plot pretty hardcore at some points. Like the points where action or anything is happening and the times between them feel so oddly paced and so drawn out in certain places.
I mean, yeah, like that's I think a bigger issue with the film in general. Like you just have like completely missing transitional scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have Cassian and Scott like together in the quantum realm. They fight off that like sun thing. Then the next time we see them, they've somehow been separated, and like and she has already drinking the ooze or whatever, and he's just being like pulled in or whatever. It's like what, like you didn't show us that. You just give us a scene where like she's somehow already there to be the like gateway person of like, yeah, just do what they're just do what they ask, and it's just not like necessary at all. It just ends up being like, wait, did I miss something? No, I didn't miss anything.
Nope.
The movie just doesn't connect those dots.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of those kinds of beats.
There is a lot of those. There's a lot of those that it's jarring, transitionally wise. Like it's so like it's not really, I don't know. There's a lot of transitional issues. There's a lot of pacing issues in this movie. This movie, I think it fell pretty like a lot lower on like my list of Marvel films. Like the kind of like nebulous. I haven't done a firm list since Endgame. So like we have a lot more product that has been put in there. But when we're talking about this film, isolated on its own, just like not even taking anything else into consideration, it's kind of just always really weird that like for two films we get like a catch up of where's Ant-Man now, and this is a story out of Scott Lang's life, and now he's a memoirist, and like don't get me wrong, I love that.
Mm-hmm. As we talked about in our spoiler cast, like you can go. I think it's probably still pre-order, but you can go pre-order. Look out for the little guy, the book within the movie.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I think that there's a lot of things that this movie does that's really cool. I think that the idea of bringing up a Kang variant as the bad guy, and that being kind of like a tie-in to, oh, well, the bad guy in this movie is Kang, but it's not that Kang, it's a different Kang. And we can kind of play with this role in a really fun and engaging way. I think this would be a great setting off point. Now, where does that land with the issues with Jonathan Majors? There's a lot of like creative things that I've seen people online talk about, but honestly, until we get like, it's still such a weird predicament as far as we don't know which way the wind is blowing at Marvel at all. Like for a studio that fired James Gunn for tweets that he did like almost a decade before they found out about them and fired them, or fired him over it, to be as quiet as they are about Jonathan Majors is just really weird.
I mean, it strikes me as he's such an integral part of Phase 5 and 6, like the role of Kang is, that they have to be careful about, like, or they have to be not careful, but they have to be like much more thoughtful about what kind of impact that's going to have, and all of those elements, versus like, oh yeah, like letting James Gunn go. They could still make they had shown already that they were more than happy to like let directors go from projects, and they would just try and make another movie with a different director. But yeah, the like central like like the direct parallel would be like, oh, we just introduced that Josh Brolin is Thanos, and now he's in some real hot water. Well, what are we gonna do with the rest of the Infinity Saga? Okay,
Yeah, that's kind of that's the exact parallel of the situation, and versus the realistic versus the hypothetical.
Yeah,
yeah, you're 100% correct. I like it's just super weird to try to think of like where this is going to go now.
It's
yeah.
I don't want to like turn the whole episode.
Oh yeah, we won't
this,
turn it into. That was my final note.
But the last thing I want to say is in this particular conversation, it is disconcerting that there obviously like believe the women, and
100%,
and I do not condone the alleged activity, but I think also the way that Jonathan Majors has been handled versus how Ezra Miller was handled,
that's a great
regarding
point.
all of the Flash stuff, is not a great look between either DC or Marvel.
No.
So that's like, for all involved, I hope everybody gets whatever treatment and addresses whatever issues they need to address. Obviously, I'm sure we will hear more as time progresses and we learn more and how that's all going to play out. But yeah, it's definitely like it adds just another interesting layer to this film, having some of that stuff in the back of my mind.
It's just, there's, like I said before, my final note is I don't know what's going to happen going forward, and so it makes rewatching this film feel kind of weird, because you're right, he is the he is the spoke that the entire Phase 5 and 6 is going to be rolling on, and and it's weird to think about like what's next if that doesn't work out. That being the final nail for me on my point. I think that was your final point on it as well.
Yeah, the odd beat of the post-credit scene ending with Kang will return. It's like, all right,
will he?
Kang will.
Kang
will. Will it be Jonathan Majors as Kang?
It's a
because like, I guess one last beat. You also got to imagine Loki's pretty much all in the can, so it's not like that's getting like dropped, and so yeah, we're still going to see him at least in that moving forward.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Moving on from that though, I will say that things that I thought were, oh no, that's pretty much the summary of all my thoughts about this film rewatching it again, as far as like not very specific things that I hated or loved about it. I think pacing, like the biggest enemy this film has, is the time that it's taking and the way that it's using it is just it feels poorly decided on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the summary of my thoughts on it. What about you?
Yeah, I think, I think much like, we talked about back when we did Black Panther Wakanda Forever, my least favorite elements of that movie were the like Age of Ultronification of some moments of like, all right, here, let's do some place setting things. I think this movie is that in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this takes everything you enjoyed of the Ant-Man films in the past, of like, fun banter, fun heist, just legitimate comedy. And it drops out, entire groups of those characters, i.e. the whole heist crew, and like it is immediately noticeable that Luis is missing from this movie, and I think the movie suffers as a significant result of it.
Just the entire crew, like they are so. We know the Langs and we love the Langs, but the Langs are only like half the family of the Ant-Man films.
And even the Langs, like, I mean, this is, we touched on this again in our full spoiler cast kind of thing, but like, this is Ant-Man and the Wasp in name only. Like, Hope is a very ancillary character in this film.
Yeah.
Like, this is barely a Wasp movie. She gets like a couple like shows up at like Deus Ex Machina kind of moments. But like, this is much more Ant-Man and Stature, I think, is what Cassie's superhero name is. Like, it's much more a Scott and Cassie story than anything else.
It feels odd that considering how long Hope and Scott have been dating, that there's certain angles that they could have taken on this that it felt like Hope is a very ancillary character. It would have been more interesting to see a more of a the first Ant-Man film did such an amazing job of setting up that this is they are a divorced couple, but they are not this is not a broken family. Is kind of the thing that they pulled from that is that Scott went to prison, he got divorced, but his wife supports him being in Cassie's life. There's no animosity between them.
Yeah, that even speaks to another completely absent cast of characters from this film.
Cassie's mom and
the complete
stepdad.
lack of Judy Greer and what's his butt that I always forget from Boardwalk Empire. They're just completely also absent. And so I think the new characters that we get in the quantum realm don't really do a lot to make up for all that. And I think the movie is so much despite being a movie where a person can go very, very tiny or very, very big, I've never looked at the Ant-Man movies as science fiction, and this just goes full tilt into science fiction. It's weird. Obviously we also talked about the comparisons to Strange World or Strange New World from the from Disney, also kind of left out to pasture. It just I don't think this works as a science fiction movie. And some of that may be it's not that the sci-fi elements and the CGI is bad.
No, not at all.
It's just
it feels derivative.
That's for me, it's not even derivative so much as it's just boring. Nothing in the quantum realm was particularly interesting, and because it puts everything on a largely level playing field, you barely even get to have fun with the shrinking and gianting that you had in the other movies. The fun action sequences of the first two movies are the fight on the little toy train set or miniaturizing the cars or something. All that's completely gone because they're just they're just always tiny.
I think that's part of the issue is that before things that Ant-Man did first incredibly well in first and second film are they play with scale in a very good way. I will say also to the point of it being science fiction, this going full science fiction when the first two films were there was light science fiction, but the first film's a heist film and the second film's a fugitive film. That's what they are. And and so for those two films to be the setup of this third film, and this third film being very tonally completely different in genre than the first one. It makes sense why character-wise you don't bring in the criminal crew element of that because you're telling the science fiction story. So replace them with the strange people of this world. And I found especially after watching it after Strange World was such a when I said derivative, it's because I think Strange World does it better with its crazy nuanced world. We get a couple of things outside of that. What's the difference between this and an alien planet at that point, right? Yeah. There's no point in Quantumania being the quantum realm being different than an alien planet than we've seen in Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder. This is where we're at is it's so just one, creatively dry, and two, derivative of things incidentally that we'd already seen. We saw just a few months prior to that. That it feels it's just kind of sad.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. We got a lot of missed potential, but at the same time, characters, I loved all the characters that we got. Even the ones that I'm I don't really feel work for the kind of movie. It works for the kind of movie it's trying to be, but not for the actual movie that it is. With these new characters. I love I forgot his name. He's the guy who's psychic, who can read minds. Quaz. The actor, I love the actor.
Yeah.
Good Place is one of my favorite shows of all time. The addition of the characters that they brought in, even Bill Murray, who is in the film for such a small amount of time, I still like Bill Murray's character as in it, but at the same time, it doesn't really work with
Yeah, I mean
what they're doing.
that's what it is for me. Is like Bill Murray is Bill Murray. He's fine. He's you know it. I'm not mad seeing Bill Murray pop up, but he does take me out of the movie. Like,
Yeah,
I'm never gonna think of his character as Lord Kryler. I'm gonna think, oh, it's Bill Murray in this movie. And to the other characters, like to the Quantum Realm characters, like Quaz, there, like I like the performers fine. I don't. I think what they're given is very base and very predictable, and like I mean, like he has the jokes of like, stop thinking that, please. Like, please don't think that. Everybody always thinks, like it's the same jokes you get like anytime there's like a telepath kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
and I just don't like. It didn't do anything for me. The Katie M. Bryan is like generic rebel leader who's been fighting this who knows how long fight, who knows how big their people were, and what like we don't get enough detail about like the horrors that Kang has like inflicted upon these people to really have a sense of like what their fight is. I mean, the fact like we basically see them attack across a single bridge of Chronopolis, and
Yeah,
it's like, all right, and that's enough to take back the city, but like also like who are they taking back the city from? Because all we see in Chronopolis is like Kang and Kang's like faceless people.
Goons, yeah.
Like the people we
yeah.
see outside of that are like the Lord Kryler and stuff. We only see them in this like weird little cantina offshoot kind of thing. So like we just don't, like, the movie doesn't care to give us enough information to get me invested in what's going on in the quantum realm. So I just never get invested in what's going on in the quantum realm.
No, you're 100% correct. I definitely agree with you on that. I think that the fact that Chronopolis, they're like, it's Chronopolis. He built this civilization from nothing. And it's like, okay, but what is that civilization?
Yeah.
It's
a bunch of shiny stuff, has a lot of weapons.
Yeah, a lot of weapons and a lot of faceless goons and a lot of like, it's so whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest problem is this film has just so many moments that aren't good moments. They're just fine. Next scene, please. Take me to the next thing that I'm actually going to like. Please.
Yeah. To throw a highlight in there, I like. It's incredibly stupid, but I like what they do with MODOK in this. I don't need it to be whoever is the real MODOK in the whatever. Like, I like that they found a way to say, oh, when Corey Stoll, when Darren Cross dies in the first movie, he wasn't actually dying. He was just getting sent down into the quantum realm, and it tragically deformed him, and so it turned him into this giant head, little body person that becomes the mechanized object designed only for killing, or whatever the actual acronym is.
Mm-hmm.
He looks incredibly stupid, which MODOK's always going to look incredibly stupid.
Yeah, MODOK as a concept is dumb as hell.
And they play him with the right level of like, they know this is a stupid character that only works, or it barely works in comics. That like the movie doesn't take him seriously. It's like one of the few points where they, I think, get that like tone right. And so you have like, even he like deliberately is completely like not the same Darren from the like him his last words being like, you were always a brother to me, Scott, and being like, no, that's not, you met him a couple days before you tried to kill him and then became this. I love that as a character beat, and like it's simple but effective of like, don't be a dick. I am not a dick, and coming in.
I think that it works so super well because we see like the effects that quantum compression can have on him. Like, it's like he's clearly like absolutely like deranged at this point. And I love it. I think it's great. Him coming back, we talked about this during the Spoilercast, but like, I hadn't kept up with the casting or anything. I didn't even know. I knew MODOK was in it. I didn't know it was Darren. And so that was just such a pleasant delight for me when I watched it the first time, This time around, it's like, yeah, cool. MODOK's great. I love MODOK. I love, like, I think that's the thing. I loved everybody who was in this film. I just didn't love the film that they made.
Yeah. Another, and probably like my favorite thing of this movie is the fact that it is the epitome of that Stan Lee like quote of like, who's going to win between a fight between these two, whoever the writer wants.
Yeah.
Like you have the climax of the movie taking this all powerful Kang and having him thwarted by ants. I love the absurdity of that decision.
Not only ants, but communist ants.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Communism. I know communism is a charged word, but we can learn something from them.
So good. I like Michael Douglas as Pym is still such a highlight. Whether it's in the first film where he's a crotchety old man in his house, the second film where he's like shrinking his building and like carrying it like a suitcase, to this film where he's just like anarcho-communist, just like, capitalism is a failed system. So
yeah,
it's like it's great seeing this like evolution of that character at least be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But also he didn't have a lot of scenes with MODOK with Darren, and you think Hope and Hank would have, like, because Darren was like his protege and was her fiance, and like there's a lot of like closeness between these three characters, and they never really interact.
They don't, because for much of this movie it's the Van Dyne and Pym family and the Langs, and the Langs are the ones that deal with MODOK. Yeah. So like it's like there's even a moment at the end there where like you like Hope kind of reacts to like Darren, like that's you, and he's pretty much just dying at that point. So they don't like they don't need to give it the time of like, oh yeah, let's invest in the much more comprehensive backstory that those characters had prior to the events of the original Ant-Man.
There's just a lot of missed things. One, I think one of the things that I really
I don't think that's not a missed thing for me. That's
not a missed thing for you?
No. Okay. That's if they take the time to delve into that relationship, that immediately like makes MODOK less of a goofy, stupid thing. And so I think that would suffer. I think that would make the movie suffer under the weight of trying to examine the like character arc between Darren and the Pym Van Dyne kind of relationship from the first movie. I like that they don't try and revisit that at all, because I think that would just be like, all right, that's another thing that this movie's trying to do but isn't going to do well. So yeah, it works for me that they don't invest any time into that, and instead we just get Michael Douglas being goofy with ants and sticking his hand into gooey flight controls and stuff like that.
There's some underserved elements in the film. I think that's a missed one for me, which is fine that it's not for you. But overall, I
mean, maybe they could have done it well, but based on the rest of this movie, I think any time devoted to that would have just been like, all right, well, now we're questioning, examining things that like this movie isn't ready to support.
Yeah, it also would have needed to be a different kind of MODOK than the goofy, crazy killer MODOK that we got. It would have had to have been different if you bring in much more personal, emotional elements like that. There would have been a lot more I guess that's a beat that they probably like dodged a bullet on. Then I think about it, because you would have had to frame that entire character and his relationships with the main characters at this point very differently. And I think you're right. That being said, overall, like, it's still a good film. Like, it's still entertaining. It still has awesome action moments. When Scott goes big, it's still fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's great father-daughter moments between him and Cassie. I liked how I was really hesitant going into this film because the marketing made it seem like Scott was teaming up with Kang to try to like get back the time that he lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that wasn't the story element, although the marketing is just weird now looking at it. But moving forward to this, I think that overall I enjoy their time together. I wish there was more Scott and Hope, because I think that dynamic is one of the most fun in the MCU. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp as a good film, like that's where it rests its laurels, is on that relationship. And And I get that we wanted a father-daughter film, but I think also back to my point about kind of like these aren't broken families because of divorce. It's it's just restructured. And I would have liked to have seen a look at, hey, are they dating and not married? Yes, but they've been together for like 5-6 years at this point, not counting the blip where both of them where she was gone.
I mean, that's what it is like they weren't together for all that time. Like the blip did happen, or he was trapped in the quantum realm. Like, and even that, like, I think one of the things I saw in interviews and stuff was the idea that maybe she hadn't been blipped, but oh no, because she does get blipped at the end. All three of them get blipped. Yeah, they're like
Scott doesn't get blipped.
Yeah, but he's stuck in the quantum realm until a rat frees him from the La Cucaracha van. But there was some kind of story beat that Peyton Reed talked about in an interview that was basically like maybe Hope had like a kid from some other relationship or something like that. I don't know where that would have come from, but like it is there's a degree of like we don't know how much time has passed between Endgame and this movie.
Yeah. But to really give it time to breathe. Yeah, and I think maybe that would have been an interesting story beat is to have it like, okay, well, how does this work? Because like there's more that could have been done to bring Hope more into this dynamic about, okay, well, we're kind of like building a family here. And everybody has pre-existing relationships with each individual person in it. Yeah. And how do you build from that? And
ultimately, all we get of that is like the opening, pizza scene where most of what they're talking about is getting Cassie out of jail because she is acting out again.
No, it's not acting out. Like, let's be like she, we're ACAB on this podcast.
I mean, yeah, so, yeah.
She's fighting for displaced people who've been displaced by the blip. Yes. I still enjoy that aspect of her character at this point. Is she like?
Yeah, sorry. It's that the movie only gives that lip service.
Yep, that's fair. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I like
that ends up serving as her motivation of like why she wants to help like the people of the quantum realm. It's like I'm pretty sure even if you hadn't peppered in that little thing, she would have still like had that motivation.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have been hard to do.
But I think it also like I like that it connects it to like the post blip. It reminds us of the stuff that happened in Falcon Winter Soldier. Kind of it places us in that post blip, like how do people deal with all of a sudden a mass displacement of half the Earth's population.
Yeah. Problem is that like the MCU clearly isn't interested in actually investigating that because that's why all we ever get is like a line or two referencing it.
Yeah.
I think the headcanon we create around it is more interesting than anything they will ever actually commit to.
Well, I mean, they committed to it with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, that was like the entire premise of the antagonistic force. Displaced people.
They wanted to like return the world back to what it was during the blip, basically.
Yeah, and that has to do with blip politics.
But even that, like, I think Falcon Winter Soldier suffered from a lot of other storytelling beats that even that I don't think gets the due that it should have or could have gotten.
Well, it was also talking about it. All they've ever done is talk about it on a top level, looking down on it, except for these one-off lines. And I think you're right.
Because even in Falcon Winter Soldier, like, yes, that is the underlying and the idea that was thought about, but they also very quickly just kind of morph into just generic baddies who are more than happy to like use the super soldier serum to like move forward with their own means. So
you're not wrong. I think you're on point with that as well. There's also other things in that show that are just like but that's besides the point. That's that show, and this is this movie. To that point though, I think that I think when you're talking about okay, well, what does it look like? What's the catch-up of this look like? The crux of Ant-Man and the Wasp was Scott didn't tell her, so she didn't go with him, and she's kind of pissed off about it, or pretty pissed off about it. And it's a matter of like, how can we trust each other? Like, where's the level of trust in our partnership, and where does that leave kind of like our interpersonal relationship? And that is what the kind of chemistry between Scott and Hope is like. That helps build on that as it goes. I did not. The Cassie Scott relationship never got to like that level of like layers of relationship and intricacy, and I think that is a weakness of the film in that point. But at the same time, I appreciated that the motivation of Scott is I just really want to try to be a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm trying to be right now. I'm like, I have everything else figured out. I'm trying to get this dad thing figured out. I'm happy to bail you out of prison, but we gotta figure out a better way of doing this. And that getting emphasized, even like that being even further emphasized about their adventure in the quantum realm, that doesn't really come together. Part of it is because of transition issues, part of it is pacing, and part of it is it doesn't really get a full resolution, because it's not like they were that antagonistic to each other at the beginning of the film, that the resolution of their issues isn't a big deal.
Yeah, it's basically like the biggest bit of tension that they have is he wants to just get her back up to the normal surface world kind of thing, and she's like, no, we need to stick around and help these people out. They're suffering. It's like, okay, like, you are an incredible empath, and that's great, but also you don't know their story. Like, but the movie's not even interested in like diving into that. Yeah. It is just like, okay, that's their dichotomy, and even there, it's like they don't ever really examine like, okay, you know, they all just happen to be working on the same side by the end, because Scott is pissed at Kang because Kang went back on his deal, and Cassie just gets wrapped up in a rebellion that she just gets wrapped up in, and like they just happen to be happening all at the same place. That's it. There's no there isn't really like a it's just it's like there are just very basic storytelling things that don't happen in this movie, and it is very much just like, okay, let's get from point A to point B and throw a whole bunch of CG goop in between.
Yep. And like when you said Cassie gets wrapped up, it's like Cassie basically vacays in a rebellion. And it's like, it speaks a lot. There's a lot going on there that are like things I think that's pretty much like the crux of, it's good.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's good. It's more than passable. It's more than fine. It's not even close to being the worst Marvel film.
No, it was. I mean, like we were talking about this before we started recording. Like you watched this on like double time. I did not.
Yes.
But I definitely felt its slowness at points not watching it on double time in this rewatch.
I literally just was like those points.
Yeah, I was just like, there is a lot of like slow stuff here where just nothing is happening, and so it's very much like it's not bad, but it's not good. It is a meh movie, which is a shame given how fun the prior two Ant-Man films were.
It's just missing a lot of the fun. The tone of this film, and I think the final note I'll put as the tone of this film is just super off.
Yeah.
For Ant-Man.
It's very much like we talked about, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, when we do a Guardians episode here, but like Guardians 3, like when you take key comic elements out of like the bulk of that movie, it drastically just affects how the tone of that movie feels, and changes a lighthearted thing to a much darker tone. And I think it's the same thing here. It's you took out so many of like the fun light elements of it and you didn't replace those elements with like fun other fun light elements. You replaced them with oppression and rebellion and a conquering like demigod, and like like the one maybe fun little like element that you get in the vein of like the train sequence from like the Thomas the Tank Engine thing from the first movie is maybe the weird like, all right, a billion Scotts trying to get up to the thing,
the one and
then you have the one Baskin Robbins Scott in there. Like
that's the only thing that we got out of it that's anything like the other two Ant-Man films tonally.
Yeah. And it's just it ends up being like this is just a very different feel.
The communist ants also like there are parts of it that's like, yes, that is definitely like it feels Ant-Man. Because the communist ants is like a reminiscent of the ants in the heist, and then it's also reminiscent of the ant on the drums and everything. Like the fun things with ants, the fun things with ants still fun. There's not enough of that.
Yeah, they are completely out of most of the movie, and then they come back in a Deus Ex Machina kind of way. Ultimately it is that idea of like, Ant-Man has such a potential for fun, innovative action, and
Yes.
this is not that at all.
Nope.
Like there's nothing. This is just like hordes of people fighting against CGI stuff at the end. They just don't play around with the scale in the fun ways they could have. It is just people popping masks on and off throughout the film, shrinking down and popping back up and punching somebody. But like, yeah, the fun ways they played with scale in the previous films is just completely lost in this one. And so I think the action overall suffers as a huge result. Like I won't. I don't think I'll think of like any particular action. I mean, it took us almost an entire hour to even get to like that Baskin Robbins, which is very much like the action sequence that they kind of like were selling the movie on and stuff like that.
Quantumania, the thing that makes the quantum mechanics of Quantumania interesting, happens in one scene and that's it. And it's not. It's happens and it's over. And I don't know if it understays its welcome. It's not there long enough, or if we got more of that, it would just not be as good. I don't know. I'm ambiguous about where it even lands for me, which says a lot about, like, you're talking about quantum mechanics and a quantum realm, and instead you just give us an alien world. Yeah. And it's disappointing.
Just like you talk about a multiverse of madness, and instead you gave us a palette swap to New York.
Yep.
It's been a disappointing couple of films in this phase so far.
I'll just put this out there. Art designers, read more Jack Kirby, please. There's Marvel, especially when we're talking about Doctor Strange, especially when we're talking about like Ant-Man and multiverse or in the quantum realm and things like that. We're talking about like there's really great comic books that have brilliant art done in them that really bring this sort of things to life. And Multiverse of Madness was a massive disappointment considering the surrealist and psychedelic nature that some of the original Doctor Strange had to it. That it definitely did not carry over to its sequel. And in this one, you have the opportunity to introduce that to fun characters, and you just don't. Yeah. And it's disappointing.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive into the report card where we grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania here, Cam?
I just give it it's a C. It's C-. It's a C- for me.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm sitting too.
I don't think it's in the fail rate of like getting into the D range. I think it stays above that D range, but I think it is just like a C-. Like, it's average, but less great average. Like, you're not bad, but you're not at the point where I'd say you're good.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, like you got a C-. You passed, but barely.
Yeah, and even the passing grade on this is getting a lot of heavy lifting from like
your prior work that you invested in this project.
Not even that for me. It's I like the people in this, so I'm willing to give it a pass.
Yeah.
But you know, another cast of people that I just care less about could have easily slipped down further.
Oh yeah, if it had a different cast in this and this was just like the same, everything else would have been an F.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You have Avengers Endgame, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain America Civil War, and Ant-Man, the 4 movies where Ant-Man has also appeared. And then you have kind of the working backwards through the MCU, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Thor Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and The Eternals. So really of those, I would say watch like Endgame and the Ant-Man. I would say watch the other things Ant-Man's in. And Wakanda Forever is good too. Extracurriculars, you watch anything else on Disney Plus these days, Cam?
We just finished Star Wars Visions. We're about to launch into Indiana Jones, so I'll be watching those pretty soon.
Yeah, but other than that, we've pretty much just been in full tilt playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah,
mode.
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm in the same boat. I don't think I watched anything else. And yeah, in all honesty, I mentioned before we started recording, I fully expected you had not found time to watch Quantumania again and had just been playing Tears of the Kingdom. So when you were like, no, I just watched through it on 2x speed, I was like, oh, I should definitely remember to do that next time. Anyway, that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about this. As we touched on, for the month of June, we'll be doing an Indiana Jones month. We'll have to figure out something to do for the 5th week since it has 5 Fridays. But yeah, we're gonna have some fun. It's definitely been a series we've long wanted to do, but hasn't actually been on Disney Plus yet. But Indiana Jones, starting with Raiders of the Lost Ark next week. Logan's definitely going to want to be on that. I think we're going to try and get Frank on that if he's able to find the time. So hopefully we'll have like some of Star Wars reunion stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, all that in the lead up to Dial of Destiny, which obviously we'll do at a later time when it comes to Disney Plus.
I have read some reviews and it is.
I'm hopeful because the guy who directed it is also the guy who did like Logan, right?
Yeah. So he has a habit. He has a history of coming back in and like.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful, but I'm also not expecting a ton from the like, the era following Crystal Skull. I'm pretty much expecting, all right, I'm going to have 2 Indiana Jones movies that I really like in Raiders and Last Crusade, and then a bunch that I don't.
Yep. I will say though, I'm still really holding out because the female lead in it is from Fleabag, and that is a fantastic show. You haven't watched it.
There you go. All right. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Massive shout out to Trevor picking up the slack for our lack of Elden Ring right now with more Tears of the Kingdom playthroughs. We've just been really busy with Tears of the Kingdom and haven't gone back yet, so
Indeed, and also screw the Fire Giant.
Yeah, that Fire Giant sucks.
You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to that, we are still doing our Jedi Fallen Order series of Let's Plays. Even if I have to like poke Cam to remind him to give me the episode upload before the deadline and whatnot. But yeah, you go check out all those Let's Plays over on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Currently, at least, our Elden Ring stuff is on hiatus from Tuesdays, and I'm just kind of filling in with Tears of the Kingdom stuff. So right now, it's either going to be Elden Ring or Tears of the Kingdom on Tuesday, Tears of the Kingdom on Thursday, and Cameron's Jedi Fallen Order series on Wednesday. Stay tuned for all of that fun stuff. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. If you liked what you heard, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.